fire up the grant-making machine once again. We've not launched an RFP for about 3 years now here at United Way, so we're really excited to be able to launch this and share it all with you and hopefully shed some light on a few things so you can understand how to best apply for funding. Before we get started, I would love to go around the room and have the community impact team and others in the room from United Way, if you feel so inclined, to introduce yourself and say what your role is so that you all here in the room can put a face with the name. And then we have names and numbers and emails broadcasted everywhere all over the RFP so you know who to get in touch with. But Rachel Speck, we will start with you.
So I'm Rachel Speck, good morning, or good afternoon, I guess, and I oversee our investments in adult employment and training here at United Way.
My name is Sarah Friedman, and I work in operations and community impact.
Hi, I'm the other Rachel Oberkhauser. I work on our education team, specifically with our out-of-school time programs.
Hi, my name is Barti Wahi, and I oversee our Reading by Third Grade portfolio on our education team.
Hello, Naomi Duck Fisher on the education team working with our early learning programs.
Hi, I'm Sam Blackwell, and I work in operations with community impact.
Andrea Furston, I'm Director of Education JUG, so I help manage the team.
And I'm Tom Lands, not with the IT here, not with the CI team, with IT, and I'll show you guys how to do the online form.
You're not so secret community impact though, Tom. You're not off the hook. Katie Jurek.
I'm Katie Jarek, and I work in community impact operations.
Excellent, thank you. And we also have Jody and Nick in the room who are here making sure that everything runs smoothly on our IT team, so thank you for this webinar. We have had some challenges with our internet service, so if the service goes down and you lose the visual, please stay with us because audio should be working just fine. So here's what we hope to accomplish today. I'm going to speak a little bit about United Way and give the overview of our overall purpose and mission here. And then Andrea will talk a little bit more about the actual request for proposals and the timeline associated with that so you know what you're getting yourselves into. And then we'll talk about the core expectations and the priorities of the RFP. And so you can ask questions as we go through that, ask questions throughout this entire presentation. If something isn't clear, we're happy to explain that. And then Tom will join us to talk about the actual application process so you know how to log in and how to work through our system to submit that on-time application of November 7th at 4 p.m. United Way's mission is all about uniting caring people to create pathways out of poverty, thereby improving the lives of individuals and the community. And that's really this beautiful connection between our corporate sector, our donors in the community, and all of our nonprofit organizations that are working day in and day out to create change within the community. And you'll see on the left here our core values: accountability, inclusiveness, and innovation. We're going to talk about how we do that through our grant making today. But then you'll also see that we have a variety of complex audience members, too, for this work that we do. So the key stakeholders that you see on the right, our donors, of course, are important to this. Many of you in the room are also donors to the work that we do here. Individuals living at 200% poverty or below, so that mythical family of 4, making approximately $44,000 per year. We know that many of the folks that you all serve make significantly less than that. So we're really looking at the toughest to serve populations. Of course, all of you are huge partners in the work that we do. I often say, and you'll hear me say this in the team, we are only as strong as our nonprofit partners doing this work every single day, and that's really important for us. And then, of course, thought leaders, really connecting this work to the people who help us make smart decisions around the best research, the best evidence, but then also the best practices that we're learning every day from all of you. So that's a critical piece of our work as well. So this is how we respond here at United Way. When we think about the money that comes in the door around our community impact work, 80% of that money is invested in multi-year grants. So that means grants in education, grants in basic needs, grants in health. This is really the funding that goes into your organizations to deliver program services that get the results and the impacts that we all believe in. So that's the bulk of our funding. Over the past few years, we've realized that in order for us to be as strong as possible and in order to get the results that we hope to get, we also have to be really thoughtful about how we're investing in strategic partnerships and coalitions, and then also how we're investing in systems change and public policy. And one of the best examples we have of public policy right now is our investment in mini-minds. Many of you are involved in the Mini-Minds Coalition. But really this idea of a lot of folks coming together around one specific issue, and in this case it's about getting increased scholarships in the state's budget to make sure that 3- and 4-year-olds have access to quality childcare. And that was a big win for us in partnership with many in this room and many others to actually increase that contribution over the biennium to $45 million. Now, we know that that's not enough. We know it's not the only solution. We know it's not the only strategy. But it's a step in the right direction to help us really leverage all these different partners to get that impact. To give you an idea of the money invested here, I know this is always something we like to talk about with our partners. When we think about our multi-year grant-making investments in education, in 2015 we'll be making $13 million annually within our education multi-year grants. Our contribution towards the Mini-Minds efforts from a United Way perspective was $100,000. So that just gives you a sense of how we're allocating funds and really leveraging different resources to create change. So a fairly insignificant amount of money within the larger scheme of things to create that kind of change to leverage $45 million. This is the education strategy and continuum that you'll see reflected very nicely within the RFP. What we've really tried to create here is this cradle-to-career continuum in a more thoughtful way. We have made some changes within the language and the scope of ages that we're looking at within this, and Andrew will talk more about this. But you'll see that we continue to be invested in prenatal to age 5, around making sure that kids are ready for kindergarten and that parents and families are significantly engaged. We have expanded our efforts in literacy around foundational skills from pre-K to 5, grade 5. And what that really means is that we've noticed, based on philanthropic investments, other funders, a lot of folks have focused on K3 or pre-K3, and we heard from many of you, what happens when a 4th grader can't read? What happens when a 5th grader can't read? We don't have the funding to be able to do that. So we expanded our thinking and our approach here that you'll hear more about later as well to really kind of address that within the community. And then thinking about youth gaining experiences to learn, lead, and succeed, formerly known as out-of-school time. This is a strategic focus on grades 6 through 12. We'll talk more about that as well. So one of the things I want to mention about our education investment strategies, we tried a lot of new things over the past couple of years to really help us form our best thinking around strategy and around engagement. About 2 years ago, we launched what's known as the Grantee Perception Report through the Center for Effective Philanthropy. If you're currently funded by Greater Twin Cities United Way, you received this. It's an anonymous tool for you all to tell us how you feel about us as grant makers, the team, where we can improve, and what we do well. And we got really candid feedback from many of you and others within the portfolio about exactly how we could do that. And we took that very seriously and launched what we called Strategy Refresh over the last couple of years. And the intent of really doing this was to look at our overall portfolio and make sure that we were as strategic as possible in terms of our investments and how we align our dollars with the work that's happening in the community. Now, one of the other big drivers of this is our donor environment is changing as well. So when we think about the ways that our companies want to interact with us, the way that our individuals want to interact with us, it's very different than years past where folks have said, United Way, here's your gift. You know how to best invest it. Folks are saying to us now, United Way, we still love you, but we want to co-create a solution in partnership with you that meets the needs of our business, but also meets the needs of United Way's mission. So it's a different way of folks doing business with us. The best example of this right now is Medtronic. We announced a couple of weeks ago a partnership with Medtronic where they're investing $2.5 million in United Way around a very specific, very targeted community health worker strategy that meets their business needs around chronic care management and meets our mission around working with low-income communities. So they're still investing in us. It's in a very different way where in the past we'd be able to really invest that strategically based on our impact areas that we currently have. So that just gives you an idea of how the landscape is changing. What that means for all of you and for us in community impact is that over the next 3 years, based on the way that folks are interacting with us, we have up to $11 million to cut. Now, this is based on our annual fund. This is based on the money that comes in the door each and every year. So that may vary a bit, but that means within the education portfolio, we've had to reduce $3 million of our work starting next year. So what we currently invest, if you're currently funded, we currently invest $16 million annually in education. Starting in 2015, we'll have $13 million to invest. So that should paint the picture that this is a highly competitive RFP process, more than it's been in the past. So in the past, we've normally gotten twice the amount in requests than we have available to invest. So as you all think about putting together your proposal and your work, really dig into the RFP. really ask the team questions around this and make sure you understand what we're looking for and have that dialogue so we can help provide guidance as well. But know that it's highly, highly competitive, and we rarely fund at the level that folks request, even in really good years. So there's a lot of great programs going on. You all are doing really great work, but know that it's going to be competitive. So as we took in all this information and as we communicated, we also really wanted to engage the community. We wanted to engage all of you in this conversation about how we can best move forward. So we launched a series of community conversations that we hosted as part of that strategy refresh that I mentioned. But new this year, we also decided to release a concept paper. And that's something we've never done here at Greater Twin Cities United Way. But we wanted to take all this information that we've been learning and all the research and evaluation results that we've been seeing and pair that up and put that into a concept paper to say, are we on the right track? Are we headed in a direction that makes sense for how services, how programs are thinking about their work in the community? And I will say that we had an overwhelming response to the concept paper. We had nearly 200 unique responses of people really giving us feedback on what our position is. That was incredibly helpful for us. We not only took that information and read everything that everyone said, we actually made changes in the RFP that was released on Monday. So that's a new step that we've implemented. I know that not many funders do this, but we truly believe at our core that in order to really make the impact that we all desire to have in our community, we have to engage people in that conversation to make sure that we're really reflecting the way the work is happening. So that's something that we will now implement as a best practice as we move forward, as we launch our safety network in 2015 and beyond. So know that that's something that's been very useful to us and very valuable, and we'll continue to make sure that those feedback loops are in place. Another piece of information that was really useful to us and was really helpful internally and externally is launching one overarching application process. So the document that you have in front of you reflects what would normally be released in very incremental steps. So we'd release 1 year early learning work, the next year reading by third grade work, the next year out of school time work, and we were in perpetual RFP cycles here. So this time we took one macro approach to try to really demonstrate our work from cradle to career in one place. Now for those of you who are interested in delivering services in multiple areas, whether it's early learning or within the foundational skills, you'll still have to submit separate applications in that area, but we vastly have freed up the process piece of this, so it should be very, it shouldn't necessarily be easy, but it should definitely be much more clear in terms of what we're looking for. So even though it's housed within one application, you still will submit different applications if you're interested in those areas. And Andrea and team will talk more about that as well. The other thing that you should see in the RFP for those of you that are currently funded and for those of you who are not that you'll benefit from is that we've become less prescriptive than we've done in the past. We heard that loud and clear from all of you. Please tell us what your point of view is so that we understand it, meaning us here at United Way. What's our shared vision for outcomes? What are the 2 or 3 things that you want to measure? And then what are the other ways that are unique to all of you in terms of the communities that you're serving that you're actually able to accomplish? So you'll see that very clearly within this. If we want to jointly measure a couple things, we're not asking you for 7 things or 8 things or more that we've done in the past, just so you know. So we've kind of been joking a little bit about this because people say, really, that's all you want us to actually measure? And it's actually true. There's some optional items in that as well that if you want to track, that's great. We're not scoring against that. And Andrea will mention more of that in a moment. And then finally, our system change and public policy work. This will continue to be very important to us. I mentioned the mini-minds example earlier. We're always looking for other emerging policy trends. One that we're tracking very closely right now is within the out-of-school time arena. We've been making sure that we have a good sense of what's happening there at our board level so that they're informed on this. So we'll continue to identify emerging opportunities for United Way to play a significant role within policy. The other area that we have a major policy play in is within our jobs area as well. So that's another place that we track, that we invest in, and that we have a significant role in. So we'll continue to look at ways for us to play a role there. So as all of you move through your day and your world, let us know as things emerge. The team is here to kind of take that in and understand that so that we can be helpful along the way. And then finally, United Way's service area is the 9-county region. So we recognize within this process that we have a really diverse set of stakeholders within the nonprofit sector. That includes folks delivering services within our urban core. That includes people in our suburbs where we know that poverty is ticking up at a dramatic rate. And this also includes small town Minnesota. So we know that we have a wide array of folks that are delivering services in different ways. And we'll talk a little bit more about how we've been mindful about distribution of funds within this RFP process so that we can really have a good eye towards making sure that our most underserved populations are being covered. All right, so any questions before I turn it over to Andrea? Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to be here. We're very excited, as Megan mentioned, to be having these meetings and really launching this process. And I'm going to be now just jumping in and talking about the RFP itself, and really just feel free to raise your hand and ask questions at any time. Just make sure we wait for the mic to get to you. I'm going to just start by getting some of the eligibility stuff out of the way so you can just see, does it make sense for you to be here today, and is this a good use of your time? So in terms of organizations that are eligible to apply, we're looking at 501c3 organizations. You would need to have that documentation. This particular funding opportunity is not available to schools themselves as applicants. This really has to do with the fact that we do, as Megan mentioned, we have less resources. So we really had to prioritize and focus our strategies, and decided to do that by looking at our partnerships with our community-based organizations and the great work that you're doing to support youth and success in partnership with schools. And then the 9-county area, Megan touched on this. You do not need to have your headquarters based in the 9-county area, but your services do need to be serving people in the 9-county area. And then the other key piece is that no more of your funding in your program can, let me say that again. Greater Twin Cities United Way cannot make up more than 70% of your program budget. This isn't new, but for those of you who are new to United Way, we just wanted you to be aware of this. This is about making sure that you have diversified funding, sort of a sustainability approach moving forward, particularly as the environment is constantly changing. We want to make sure there isn't that over-dependence on any one funding stream. Well, hold on, let's get a mic up here. Yep, right here.
Simple question. No more than 70% of a specific program budget or the organization funding?
Nope. So this is the program budget, not the org piece. Yep. So good clarification. And then the next piece is really just that demonstrated commitment to diversity. Once again, this isn't new, but what you'll see in our questions in the RFP, both pertaining to organizational diversity, cultural competency, and inclusion, you'll see that both in the organizational questions as well as in the program questions. And we're very specific around how we're thinking about that and looking at that. So you'll see it in the context not only of kind of the makeup of your staff and of your board and how that reflects and aligns with the populations you serve, but also in terms of your programmatic approach and how you're delivering your services. And then if you're new to United Way, which means that you don't have any funding across our different areas, safety net or in education, some of the things that you should be thinking about in terms of what you'll need to submit is current year organizational operating budget, recent audited financials, the 990, and then a board of directors list. So just want to get this on your radar. These are things you'll need to be putting together. And then in terms of other things that we'll be looking at for those organizations that are currently receiving United Way funds, some of the things that we do pay attention to are you filing your annual reports on time? You know, have you been a good partner in that sense? And have you been conducting a United Way employee campaign? These are things that we do really in partnership, and it just speaks to the value. And then the financial documents, do we have those? Are they up to date? This is just another lens that we take in the review, so it's important that all that information be in. Another piece of eligibility, more from the program perspective now, is that 40% or more of the participants served in the program are living at 200% of poverty or lower. This is really about United Way's mission and alignment with that mission. I know programs can use the proxy of free and reduced lunch participation or eligibility, so know that that's a possibility as well. I know that for some programs this can be challenging information to get. It is really critical in terms of our stewardship to our donors, as I mentioned, our mission. So if this is something you're concerned about, please reach out to staff here and have that conversation, and we can do some problem solving around it. The 9-county service area, of course. And then as Megan touched on in terms of our goal areas, you really saw that language framed in terms of ages and grades. So just being cognizant of that as you think about the proposal and sort of what goal area you're applying and that you're telling that story in the context of how we've defined it by age and grade. And then this last piece is absolutely critical because it really speaks to the investments we make in multi-year funding, and that is this 2 years of demonstrated success. So at the point that you're actually submitting that application, we're looking for you to have a minimum of 2 years demonstrated success operating that program. And the reason for this is that this funding, because it's multi-year, is not really about us investing in innovation, new things. It doesn't mean that you might not be innovating within your program, but we're really not trying something completely new here. We have other funds that we occasionally target for that type of innovation in the community. This is really about funding what we know works, what you have demonstrated. And the extent to which you can show that how you've measured success aligns, ties out to the outcomes that we have laid out that you're submitting targets on in this RFP, the clearer that storyline will be. And I know we had a question related to that.
Let's suppose the program has been operating successfully for 2 years, but serving primarily a different participant population. But we're seeking funding in order to expand the program to serve those living at 200% of poverty or below and have a specific group in mind who would meet those criteria.
Yeah, so I actually got that question literally about an hour ago, and I'm just going to give you my very honest response. So you could apply, so a program could be, in existence, and then you could be whether it's a new site or whether it's an expansion and you're looking to serve a different population. I will say you could do that. If you have no experience in that sort of program approach in serving people who are at 200% of poverty and lower. And so this is, and I'm not saying this is your case, but this is the case I had earlier. I think it's going to be extremely difficult to be competitive because the program approach, your ability to effectively serve this population, we need to know that there's a history there in terms of being able to do that well. So if that doesn't address it, we may want to just, and you're looking at it differently, I'm happy to kind of discuss it further with you after any of the managers. Any other questions related to this piece? So some of what's changed. Megan noted that we did listen, and we really appreciate the feedback that so many of you provided on our concept paper. It really helped us, I think, make some really important changes and ultimately end up with a better final product. So some of what we changed is we added some information around measurement tools. That was something we just didn't have a chance to get to in the concept paper. Know that this is guidance, some available tools that we see as working and being utilized in the community. This is not meant to be an exhaustive list, so if you have other measurement tools that you use, feel free to go ahead and use them. Just please identify them and talk to us about kind of how you're using them and how they're working. We also made some modifications to outline indicators. One example I'll give is in the foundational skills area, formerly reading by 3rd grade. There was an outcome around executive functioning skills. Part of what we heard is that, great, it should happen, but not everyone's at a place where they can deliver on that, and it's more aspirational at this point. And so that is moved as an example of what could be an optional outcome indicator. Then the other piece is we added mechanisms to support both solutions for serving programs that serve non-urban areas, We want to make sure that we have that geographic coverage, that diversity in our portfolio. That's something we've always been committed to. Now it's just about being transparent and intentional in our language to you that this is one of the considerations. The other thing that we really heard in the refresh and in the input we got on the concept paper is really articulating and having a position around addressing some of our critical opportunity gaps in education. And so we are taking and putting some of that language right here and saying we're putting value against programs that are, we're saying we value programs that ultimately have very intentional strategies around addressing the opportunity gap and can show us evidence of how they're making success in that. This slide really just speaks to the goals across our education continuum. So as Megan noted, we'll be accepting proposals, one per each of the goal area, with the exception of the children are ready for school area or the children up to age 5 outcome area. That area you actually have an opportunity to apply more than once. So you could submit one proposal in sort of the area of child care centers and another in the area of parenting programs. Please note that in the area of child care centers, we do expect that there's sort of parenting approaches, but if the main focus is on sort of the service delivery in the context of a child care center, that would be one proposal. If the main focus is around home visiting and a parenting program in that sense, then you might submit a separate proposal. And that's really about recognizing that these are really two unique strategies and approaches. In the other two areas, it would be one application. Yes?
Yeah, just to clarify, for the children up to age 5, you just said we could apply in both, and we could actually be funded for both, potentially.
Potentially, absolutely.
Okay,
yeah,
just clarifying that. Thank you.
We have one more question back here.
So for the child care center part of that top one, are you only open to funding programs that partner or operate licensed child care centers, or would you be open to like legally unlicensed, family friend, neighbor, other types of child care?
I'm going to let Naomi speak to that question.
They need to be licensed as well as either parent-aware and NACE accredited. So family, friend, and neighbor would not be eligible to apply. And just going back to the earlier question about ability to apply for both the parenting component and the child care, you can only apply in those two areas and perhaps get granted in both areas if they're two very distinct programs, in the sense that you're not providing home visiting or parenting group work to support the parents who are already enrolled in the child care center. If it's just a parent engagement strategy of your child care center, we recommend that it's one application, that you articulate that very well in your application, which will strengthen it. But if there are two distinct programs, perhaps serving very distinct populations, then yes, you could then apply separately.
Thank you for that clarification. That's helpful. Any other questions on this slide? So this was also just to familiarize you with the kind of outcomes that you'll see in the RFP. So the key elements, in addition to what you just saw, there's core expectations for all grantees. This is really based on what we've heard from you as kind of best practices across programs in the education area and what the literature is telling us. I don't think you'll be surprised by any of those. Those are on page 8. And then for each of the goal areas, we have really this preferred approach and expectations, also based on best practices really within the areas of foundational skills and the out-of-school time area. And then you saw the outcomes and indicators, and then as Megan touched on earlier, new this year, and this also was really in response to what we heard from you, is we're giving you the option of submitting your own outcome indicators. This isn't something that we'll be scoring on, but it does allow you to just further tell us your story and how you define and measure success, which helps us better ultimately understand the work that you're doing. So that's an option as well. And then, of course, we added the language around measures, and that will be another key piece to kind of pay attention to and think through. Any questions on this piece? So you're probably all curious to know around how our funding decisions are made. And so there's a few components here. One, when we get all the proposals, we do an initial kind of look through around eligibility. So the things I covered at the start of this, just to make sure that these are 501c3 organizations, the 70% of funding, things of that nature. And so any applications that we get that really just don't meet those basic eligibility requirements, we would be following up with you right away, and that screening would take place. Then ultimately we do a deeper read, and those proposals that we get where we see really strong alignment, high quality, those move forward and we conduct site visits. And that's just a way of us, once again, getting another deeper set of information, sort of that qualitative experience that will further inform our review. And then, of course, we also take into account, we provide bonuses for the non-urban programs and for the programs that have that intentionality around addressing the opportunity gap. So when I say bonuses, you'll notice in the RFP itself, there's different sections for each of the questions. So some are around program effectiveness or program approach, some are around organizational effectiveness. Each of those sections has points attached to it. It just gives you a sense of kind of how we're weighting and how we're sort of looking at this information. And then the bonuses kind of lay on top of that. And then the funding recommendations ultimately go to our committees for approval. So it's another set of stakeholders. Our committees are made up from members of the community, of sort of diverse stakeholder groups. So it's another lens on our review process. So I should stop and just say, any questions about that piece of things? Okay. So funding, Megan touched on the fact that we've got $13 million total available across this area of education that we'll be investing. The minimum grant that we will fund is $50,000. So just think, you know, just in terms of not submitting a proposal that asks for less than $50,000. And that's really about, in part, making sure that we have this diverse portfolio and opportunities for smaller organizations in particular, and recognizing that as we do diversify our portfolio, that there's also a commitment to sort of partnering with United Way. So I do want to touch just a moment on what it means to partner with United Way and how we partner with you. And that does involve, you know, sometimes quarterly meetings where we really do have, there's opportunities to look at best practices. We have a Council of Agency Executive group, so directors meet on a regular basis. They also share learnings and discuss some of the, you know, challenges and opportunities and share information around what's happening in the community and how they can be interfacing. So there's key opportunities there. And then, of course, there's just other requirements around annual reporting and such. So there's a whole host of things that you'll see in the RFP that will just better let you know if you're new to working with United Way of sort of what that looks like. And then the average grant is $175,000. This is just to give you a sense of, you know, as you're applying and sort of thinking about the amount. Doesn't mean that you need to apply at $175,000. It's just to give you a sense of kind of how things, the landscape looks. Question up here? Oh, a couple questions.
With that average grant size of $175,000, do you anticipate that you'll be awarding a smaller number of grants?
Well, we do have fewer resources, so in all likelihood we will be funding fewer grants, but how that's going to play out will just sort of depend on the competitive process.
Would the minimum grant of the $50,000, for example, would that be for the 3 years or would that be for each year?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I forgot to clarify. So that is each year. So we generally make multi-year investments. That's part of the funding agreement, but it's based on how campaign comes in. But the funding that we make is per year at that amount.
Hi, I wanted to know if, I'm assuming the size to some degree is determined by how many children you're serving. And so I was wondering if you could give us a range of the size of programming. Like if you're getting $200,000, does that mean you should be serving approximately 300 kids, for example? Or?
Yep. So we don't apply a formula of that nature. As Megan likes to say, our process is really a mix of art and science. So certainly we do look at size of program. We look at sort of the approach that's appropriate for the population you're serving to get you the results. That may be greater depth in some cases and in other cases. So there's a whole variety of factors, as well as just, the geography and the sort of mix as well. So we, I wouldn't say that there's sort of something that we look at for this dollar amount, we want to see this many kids served. That's not the lens that we take, no.
Is there an award ceiling? Is there a maximum?
So we do not have a ceiling amount. We didn't want to get overly prescriptive on the front end. We wanted to allow us some flexibility based on what we receive and our own sort of strategic priorities moving forward in this process. So there's no cap.
Hi. If the proposal comes in $400,000, will there be some negotiations, or is that what will be funded?
Yeah, great question. So the way that it works is once we make our funding decisions, let's say you submitted a proposal where you asked for $100,000, and in the end we're looking to make an investment of $70,000. We would come back to you and say, here's the investment that we're looking to make or that we'd like to make, and really have a dialogue with you around what would that look like, and how might you have to adjust your targets, and what, sort of what would this mean. So we really view this as a conversation that we would have with you, and so it isn't something that you're locking yourself into certain targets regardless of what you get funded for. Yep.
Yes. Do you allow for indirects?
Sorry, can you ask that again?
Indirects to the organization. Does United Way allow for indirects to the greater organization? Like, for example, we're with the Science Museum of Minnesota, and a lot of times we get grants. Do you understand my question?
Yes. Are you asking about indirect contributions in terms of the overall budget for your program?
Correct.
And are you thinking about that in terms of the contribution to the no more than 70% for United Way? Is it within that context?
Yes.
Okay, so we actually do want to see that you have other funding sources of cash in addition to the United Way contribution. So if your overall program budget is, $1 million, we want to make sure that 700,000 of that, no more than 700,000, is United Way. That's a really big number that I just gave. I always go big. Andrew's like, what are you doing? And the rest of it should be resourced from other funding sources directly.
Do you expect all grants made to be 3-year grants?
Yes, so this process is really about multi-year funding, so we are looking at a 3-year time frame on this. It doesn't mean that if a program that we fund had terrible results or something, we would be in conversation. It wouldn't necessarily be a defund. This is about working together, but it is sort of a year-to-year conversation and looking at results, but it is a 3-year initial, commitment. Oh, yep.
Will there be other RFP rounds for parenting, or is this the only one where parenting programs would be able to apply?
So this is our multi-year funding that is inclusive of parenting. We don't know at this time, there could be initiative dollars that come out. That's something that's in the future that we'll be, making plans against. But in terms of sort of significant investments, this is our grant opportunity for really the next really 3-year period. I think there was some other, we'll get you a mic in just a sec.
So if you were proposing a project that serves youth across different counties, but it's the same project, is that like you only need to submit one application, right?
Correct.
You can only submit one application.
Yes, so if you're serving across maybe multiple counties, but it's really sort of the same program, maybe the approach might vary a teeny bit based on the different sites, you'd have an opportunity in the proposal to actually list your different sites and just tell that story. Great questions. All right. Well, here's our timeline. And so on November 7th is when the applications are due by 4 p.m. We do encourage you to get them in prior to that deadline. There can be technology glitches, you know what the story is. So we recommend you start thinking, about getting it in, whether it's a week prior, but certainly a day prior. And then we are going to be conducting site visits for those high quality and aligned programs in that December to February timeframe, and then bringing forward our funding recommendations to committee for approval in February and March of 2015. And then the funding will actually begin July of 2015. So, yep, we got a question. Sure.
Will everyone know by December if they're getting a site visit or not?
So right now, the way that we're thinking about it is that no, it will. What we're doing is we'll be conducting those site visits, but we want to give ourselves a little bit of flexibility so that if, for some reason, a site visit just goes terribly off, and we gather information, observe things that suddenly cause us to reassess. We want to be able to really pull from that larger pool and do a site visit there. So we don't want to get ahead of ourselves in making those decisions. So really, the decisions will come out later on in that process.
Would the site visit be on the existing program, or like we're upgrading the program to include more literacy now, and so would you want to bring in the literacy person that we've committed to, or the school that we've got an MOU with, or do you want more of those people?
Yep, so we'll provide a little bit more guidance on the site visit as we get a little bit closer, but just to give you an idea, we will be asking, for you to think about bringing partners there, having partners there for the site visit, and this is really about the program you're proposing, so it would absolutely make sense that if there's components you're building in that you have those partners there.
I have a couple questions. One, if somebody submits in more than one category, what's the likelihood that United Way will want to fund somebody across multiple categories rather than taking an opportunity to fund additional organizations? That's my first question. And the second is, just to clarify or confirm, you're talking about, is it desirable to fund existing programs more than enhancements to existing programs? So you're looking for 2 years of program performance, positive program performance. If we wanted to scale up a program and include some additional components, would that be seen as riskier or beneficial?
I would say it really just, it wouldn't be riskier, certainly. Whether it's beneficial or not, I think just depends on what you're adding and how sort of the need is and why you're doing that, and just having sort of a clear rationale around sort of why you're taking that approach to meet the needs of the community that you're serving, and why that's going to be an enhancement and get you better results. So, so that would be my answer there. Your first question, in terms of kind of how we're thinking, and that we do multiple goals with sort of some preconceived strategy around that. This is really about kind of how the competitive process plays out. We're really looking to fund the highest quality, greatest aligned programs, and if that means that some really fall within, organizations that are working in multiple areas, we'll just have to see. I don't want to say it isn't a consideration. It may be in the context of everything that we're looking at, but it would just be one of many. Yes?
If we currently have a program doing the K through 3 reading, with the way the guidelines start out now, does that mean we'd have to expand to reading with 5th graders, or would you still do just the K through 3?
Well, Barty's the expert right there, so I'm going to have her take this one.
Handy, huh? No, the answer would be no, right? I think some of the rationale around that expansion to 4th and 5th graders is that we know that there are many 4th and 5th graders who are not reading at grade level, and still really need additional supports, and we wanted to give programs the flexibility to provide those services, and not create that kind of cliff.
With regard to the 6th through 12th graders, if I remember correctly, what I read in the RFP talked about any additional help that they might need is best given from the education system, from the teachers. So then would that exclude any OST programs that are doing tutoring and homework help and things like that?
I'm actually going to have Rachel Oberkhauser take that one. She can speak a little bit more about the work in that area.
So just so I'm understanding your question correctly, you're saying that you're asking if out-of-school time programs or the Learn, Lead, Succeed area moving forward can include components of homework help and tutoring and things like that? Okay. It certainly can. What we're really looking for, however, is opportunities for young people to connect with caring adults, opportunities for project-based learning, so that could be infusing some aspects of homework help. Also, some intentional work around social and emotional learning pieces, and just some opportunities for some external understanding and experiential opportunities, if that makes sense. So yes, but really looking to promote some of those other pieces.
I have two questions. The first one is I'm looking at grades 6 through 12, and it asks, where do you offer services? Potentially, if we have like 60 sites or 60 places, do you want us to list every single thing, or would it be helpful to list like the key school districts that we're in? Do you really want to know like all 60 sites in the addresses?
That's a lot. Yeah, Rachel?
Is that the question in the application or in the demographic section?
Application.
Yeah, in the application, we're looking for generally where your site's located. Are you located at schools only? Are you located in community-based organizations? Things like that. There is a section in the demographic section that will ask you for specific site delivery locations, and there we'll be looking for those specific addresses. Does that make sense?
So yeah, I'm thinking of like H, where do you offer services? Do you want us to list all 60 locations in addresses?
Not in the application,
yeah,
but in the site delivery location section in the demographics.
Okay.
We can talk afterwards.
Okay,
yep.
do that. And then my other question, can you just confirm for me out loud that what used to be called out-of-school time can be programs within schools if we're a nonprofit agency, we're not the school per se. Is that right?
That's incorrect, actually. So for the Learn, Lead, Succeed area that's serving grades 6 through 12, we're looking for programs that are operating outside of the traditional school day. So programs that are either operating before the school day, after the school day, during the summertime or weekends.
But it can be taking place at the school. Yeah.
So I had a question about the youth programming. So I saw that there was like a requirement that every youth had to reach a certain number of points of contact. So our programming does truancy intervention where we might have like 300 kids on a case management, but then we're trying to funnel them in to kind of more enrichment style. So for this application, would we almost need to peel off just the youth that are doing more of the kind of group work, or can we count like a case management contact as a contact with the program?
So for some of these specific things, happy to talk with people offline too, because I think yours might be a specific case. But mostly this would be a program, so we'd be looking more at your enrichment piece, not necessarily the case management piece, but I'd want to maybe talk with you more to learn a little bit more so I can understand fully and give you a better answer.
So to that point, I want to note that we will have a little bit of time after for you to meet with some of the staff. We also really encourage folks to reach out. Staff are available in the days ahead. We do encourage you to reach out in the next 3 weeks or so, meaning sort of the month of October, and not wait till that first week of November, because there's just no guarantee that we can get that sort of turnaround with this many folks applying. But we really do want to dialogue.
I have a question on the application.
in terms of the participant numbers, it says here just the proposed target of low-income participants. So then like if you have a blend, you just want the specific numbers of low income listed. And then for reporting, are you expecting us to only report on those individuals too?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So what we're asking in the demographic form and in your outcome indicator targets is really just around the population that's low income or 200% or near poverty. And what we're asking for in the budget, so if you're a program that serves mixed income, we're asking you to tell that whole story in the context of your budget. Because we recognize your program may serve populations of varying income backgrounds, and that's the business model for running the program. But what we're funding is really the services that are directed at this target population. And Naomi?
Andrew, can I just clarify that? If you look on page 38 under D, you are asked to say how many total number of program participants is your program serving, and then the next question is the total number of participants that are at or below 200% poverty. So we are trying to better understand the target population that we care about within the context of your overall program.
Yeah, so it's a one-point number, but then the rest of the information will really be around that target population. Got one more question?
Will you guys consider general operating grants, or is it all program grants?
So this is, we fund programs, not organizations, so it's a good distinction. So it isn't general operating for an organization. Yeah, doesn't mean that you couldn't have some of your, rent or whatever built in, but it is. It should be proportional to the program. Let's do one more, and then I'll hand it over to Tom.
Hi, I didn't quite understand what you said about the mixed income with reference to the budget. Did you say that you should present a budget that includes only costs for serving the target population, or do you want it presented in the context of the total program budget?
The context of the total program. So to give an example, if I run a child care center and I have some that are paying full fee and others that are CCAP or whatever, just coming in under scholarships, whatever the case may be, I'm going to submit the program budget for your program, all the kids that I serve, and then I'm going to submit outcome indicator targets and the primary part of my demographic information around just that low-income segment of the program population. Oh, sorry. One more question?
I just have a question about the in the early childhood, the parenting piece, where it says preference will be given to targeted home visiting programs. I just want to clarify that that's because that generally often refers to a specific type of home visiting targeted case management programs that is federally funded, but then you provide a separate definition in the RFP on, I think I said page 15, or no, sorry, I forget the page, but just wanted to clarify what you're defining as targeted home visiting.
Yep, so Naomi will respond to that.
We do provide a loose definition in the RFP, and while we are working with reduced funding and we are trying to be more narrow in focus, we will be willing to explore other possibilities. So I would say make the case for how you are targeting your home visiting to the population that we care about most. And if you have further questions, I'm happy to answer them after.
If your 501c is a huge umbrella and it has right now 2 existing United Way grants addressing 2 separate populations, African American and American Indian, in different schools, having a OS, an out of school time program. Can both of us still reapply, because it's going to be both in there, and with separate departments, separate communities, separate everything, but we're all under the head or the umbrella of the 501c. because I had heard only one grant can come up each section.
So
this isn't like two, the department would be the same, it would be separate programs.
Yep, so as an organization that would be submitting an application in one goal area, you would have an opportunity to submit one application in that goal area. You could submit another application in a different goal area. So it would be about sort of just telling that story about how you're serving maybe in different geographic areas, but under the context of sort of one program. I mean, framing it as kind of one program serving those two geographies. And we can talk more after about that, because I know that can be a little bit complicated, and it's, you know, a little bit of the unintended consequences of this approach that we have to just grapple with. All right, Tom, who's going to go through sort of the online process. Here's our contact information. You'll also have this on our website and in the proposal.
All right. I'm Tom Lands with Greater Twin Cities United Way in our IT department. Lots of great questions. Feel free to stop me as I'm going through if you have other questions for me. So we're going to run through just high-level steps on creating your application, getting that filled out in the online form. Just by show of hands, who is going to be brand new to our application and reporting tool? Just a few. Who's been through it enough times that you can do it in your sleep, you've had no troubles? More than yesterday. I think I had one yesterday. So real high-level steps. First, you're going to go in. You can have multiple people from your organization with access. Decide on your team, get access for each of those people. So step 2, prepare your login. You're going to get a username and password specific to you, tied to your account, linked to your organization. Log into the site, start an application one time, fill your application information in, submit your application when you're done. Those are like super high level steps. So we're a Microsoft shop. We use a lot of Microsoft products. The tool that we're going to use for the applications is called Microsoft SharePoint. Because it's a Microsoft tool, Microsoft products tend to work best together. So we recommend using Internet Explorer when you're in the application. We do also say that it's supported for Firefox and Chrome. I go in it, and Safari. I go in it occasionally by myself with those tools. It generally works fine. We do find some kind of goofy hiccups with other browsers. So for instance, occasionally when people are trying to print out a copy of their application, for some reason Google Chrome doesn't like that. It doesn't work well. So we get calls all the time, hey, something doesn't look quite right. The first thing we're going to ask you, are you using Internet Explorer? So save yourself a phone call. Start by using Internet Explorer. At least if you run into any issues, try IE, and then give us a ring after that. So, okay, so to prepare to log in, we do recommend that everyone with your organization who's going to be accessing the online either application or if you've had reports that you've filled in, things like that, we recommend that each person has their own password. I know a lot of organizations set up one account and they share that account with somebody else who shares it with somebody else. What's going to happen is somebody will forget the password, they'll change it, and the password that I had written down on my Post-it note doesn't work anymore. So best bet, just set up your own account, have your own password, that way you can reset it, things like that if you need to. We do set the system up so that everyone from your organization can see everything else submitted by everyone else from your organization. So if you had a report submitted in the out of school time 2 years ago, if you set up, we'll tie you to the right organization and you'll still see that. Same thing with this application. 2 people can have accounts. They'll see what's created, what's submitted, things like that. So to go about setting up your accounts, first thing you're going to need is the password, the big long URL there. Copy paste that into a browser. Or you could visit our website and click on our impact for nonprofits, funding current funding opportunities. There's going to be a big orange button that says request a new user account. Click that, fill out the form. It's going to be your name, email address, account, things like that. Hit submit. There's a manual process behind the scenes where we set up your account, tie it to the right organization so that you see the right options, old documents, things like that. And it sometimes takes us a little time depending upon how busy it is. The email you're going to get back will say it could take us 2 to 3 business days. So do the math. Don't request your account on November 11th or November 7th, whatever the date is. It won't end well. So Go back to your office, set those up today or tomorrow. We'll get you your account back. You'll have plenty of time to fill out your application. Once we've set up your account, look for an email from support@gtcuw.org with this subject. It's going to have a link back to the grants portal. It's going to have just a random password that we generate for you. Your username will be the email address that you sign up your account with. Then grantsproposal.unitedwaytwincities.org is a link to the general dashboard for our agency portal for the link. Or there's been a lot of information out about the education portal, about the education RFP, and some of those emails and communications have had links right to the education sub-site. Either of those will get you where you want to go. Enter your email address and the password you receive, and you will land there, which is where we're going to go now. So I have my testing account here. Let's see if I keep my username and password in correctly. If you do happen to not recall, you'll see there's a forgot username and password link on there. If you know you had an account in the past, you don't know what that username and password is, rather than sign up again or call us asking for a new account, click that forgot password. It'll automatically generate a new password for you. Okay, so we run our landing page here. We've got some announcement information, contact information. What we're interested in is on the left-hand side, the Helping Children Succeed RFP. And because I'm coming here for the first time, I'm going to see the general information about the RFP. I will see the guidelines for the RFP as well. Under applications, there's nothing in there because I haven't started one. So the first thing I want to do when I come in here, start a new application. And now we are on the application itself. First thing I would do when I come into the application is just create a document and save it. So I'm going to IT application. Just to make sure everything is working fine and my account was set up right, I'm in the right place, I'm just going to save that to make sure that everything saves the first time. If you get this message that says your application's been saved, you're good. Once you've saved it in there, then I would come back in and start plugging in information, organizational information. Got a couple questions I will point out here. Because we're doing 3 focus areas, or kind of 4 focus areas in one application, there are some subsections that are going to be different depending upon what you're applying for. And until you tell us what focus area you're applying for, the application might not be sort of complete. You might not see the whole application on the screen. So first thing I would do is just tell us, okay, we're going to do the Children Are Ready for School Early Learning program. Now when I get down to the indicator section, that section will show me the right questions. So fill that one in first. Same thing actually with this next question. The document uploaded requirements are a little bit different for organizations currently funded by United Way. Some of your financial information we already have, things like that. So plug that in as well so that we see the right document upload. So actually I'll say no. We encourage you to document frequently. Did not end well for him, unfortunately. We want to say frequently. It's a web-based tool. You could lose your internet connection. Your session in our tool will expire, things like that. I mean, it'll be okay on your desktop for an hour, a couple hours, but 5 days is plugging in information there. We don't want you to lose anything. Until you save it to our systems, we don't really have a record of it, so we can't recover things that were on your computer. So save frequently, and we'll be able to do a whole lot more to help you there. With the application then, so let's see, program information. Here we can see we've got the program indicators for Children Are Ready for School because we selected that area. We did yesterday have a few questions. Actually, I'll point out this as well. We had a question about service areas and entering multiple service areas. This is toward the end of the program information, and we do have the information, the field there to get the location name, location address, and you can add additional service locations as necessary. So if I have 5 locations, I would add 5 different ones, plug the addresses in there, and that's how those are going to go in. We mentioned bonus points. Okay. So with the budget, things are structured a little bit differently this year than they were in the past. There is current year budget for this calendar year, and then for just one year of budget for next year recognizing that things like fundraising, aren't fully set up. You don't have everything in the bank right now. We did break that section out based on what's sort of on hand in the bank, what's pledged and expected to come in versus sort of what's pending fundraising yet to come in. So the way that we built this is if I had logos and $100 in each of those areas, it will total up to say, all told we expect to have about $300 in funding for next year. Here's what's in the bank. Here's what we expect to come in. Does that make sense? Some sections, like the Greater Twin Cities United Way funding, that's what you're applying for. It's all pending, right? So some sections are only going to be pending, but for those that have 3 different fields, that's what that is doing there. Otherwise, all right, and we've got some document uploads here. These should be pretty straightforward. Click to load a document, find it on your desktop, attach it. Once I've gone through, I've plugged all my information in, saved it, other folks within my organization have reviewed it, our executive director approves of it, it's done, doesn't need to be touched ever again. Up at the top and again at the bottom. I'm going to save that information again, just to be sure we're good. And then one time, we're going to submit that application. Once you click submit, you're going to get bounced back to the main page, and the application status is going to say submit. At that point, you don't have the rights to go ahead and make changes to that. That tells us that I'm done. You guys can go ahead and review it. This isn't going to change anymore. Everything should be submitted by 4 o'clock on the 11th of November. 7 o'clock? 7. Is that what I said? 11? 7. Sorry. 7th of November. Or earlier. Our help desk people are going to be busy on the 7 o'clock. On the 7th, I guarantee they're going to get phone calls. So try and submit a few days earlier. You'll get much more attention from them. So again, yeah, at that point, it is submitted. We occasionally have people who accidentally submit applications early. We can flip them back into draft, but it's going to take a phone call in for us to get that back for you. So make sure that you're done. Everything's good before you submit. Questions on the form so far? Good. Last fewer questions. A couple. Yeah.
Just a question on the. I had to reset my password as you earlier described, and when I go to the change password button, nothing happens. Do you think that's is that a browser problem? I haven't tried it in a different browser.
I think I've had trouble with that in Chrome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That could be an Internet Explorer thing. Should be working. Okay. All right, so some of these I've mentioned here, but a few tips otherwise for completing the application. Again, save as you go along. We don't want to lose any information. We do have people ask whether they can copy and paste information from Word. So if you want to pass a Word document back and forth between a few people to work on it, copy and paste into Word, but fancy formatting, things like bold, text, italics, bullet points, things like that won't pull over. These are just basic text boxes. So just know that we're not going to get your tables and bullet points. Best bet is to use the scroll bar to navigate through the application. There are some drop-down questions that sometimes you try and arrow through, and you can change what your answer was to that drop-down. Just be aware of that. Use the scroll bars. Local staff can have access to the system. Any registered staff with your organization can access that same application. They'll see it in the applications menu. I'll show you a little example of this. We do just want to warn you that multiple staff can overwrite the work of other people. So we'll look at that, but you want to kind of have a plan of attack as far as when people are going to actually be in the application, filling in information. And then just, to make sure you don't have conflicts with other people trying to open the application, we recommend closing out when you're not actively working anymore. So to demonstrate what could potentially happen if we have 2 people overwriting each other's work, if we had a saved application all the way at the beginning of our timeline there, and at 8:07 Susan comes in to complete a bunch of information in the budget. She opens it up. The only thing completed is the organization and contact info. So she's working. She spends 20 minutes in it. In the meantime, Carl opens up. He's opening still that same blank version at the beginning because Susan hasn't saved her work yet. He's opening it up. He fills in all of the program contact name information. And Susan saves hers, but then 25 minutes later, 30 minutes later, Carl saves his. All that's saved is what was saved at the end, which was Carl's. He only completed that bottom information. So any work that Susan did could be overwritten by what Carl saved. So that's, again, if you're a one-person shop, you're the only person working in the application, don't worry about this. But if you do have multiple people completing different, setting up a schedule. So again, sending the application when everything is completed, when you've done your internal reviews, the executive director approves. The submit button will take you back. You'll see right on the agency dashboard that it's going to say submitted. If you run into trouble, we do keep a help desk staff during business hours, so roughly 8 to 4:30 or so. Support@gtcuw.org, or got a phone number there if it's a question that's more easily answered over email. I think that's it. Any other questions on the application itself? Cool. Oh, yeah, got one.
I was just curious about, like, if you need to go in and delete a past user, if...
Yeah, just shoot us an email to the help desk. Okay. Yeah, we have staff who have come and gone. I'm assuming their email address with your organization isn't going to be valid anymore, so it would be tough for them to get back in. But if you know somebody's left your organization, we can certainly turn off their access. That's great. Keep us up to date. Okay? All right, thank you.
So before we close, and you'll have an opportunity to talk to staff more informally, are there any final questions? Great. Well, we will thank you again for coming today. Well, one last thing I forgot.
So not related to the request for proposals, United Way, in partnership with U.S. Bank and the Star Tribune, we have launched our 5th annual essay contest. So for those of you who are working with kids in grades 3, 4, or 5, if you want more information about that, that would be great. It's a great opportunity to highlight the good writing of your students and submit it to the Star Tribune. Ultimately, 10 young people are selected, and there's a variety of different activities that happen for them. So more information here. It's a really cool thing that we do in partnership, again, with the Star Tribune and U.S. Bank. So if you'd like more info, let me know. Thank you all for coming today.